feels weird that they didn't wait like one more week to drop this. Hello, this is the One Nerd, and today I'm going to be talking about the newest edition of a series I have a lot of love for: Marvel Zombies. During the first season of the Disney Plus series What If, we were introduced to the MCU's version of Marvel Zombies, a retelling of the opening of Infinity War, only most of the Avengers had been turned into zombies due to a mysterious virus. But this wasn't the first time we would see this concept. Let's take a look back to the glorious time of 2005. Well, actually, technically, this takes us back to 2004. No, wait, technically it starts in 2000. Let me just go ahead and get going. See, back in 2000, Marvel Comics was not doing so well. We would still be 8 years out from Iron Man bringing in a new era of comics and comic book movies, and 7 years until One More Day would make a Spider-Man comic so bad that it would basically ruin the character to this day. But in 2000, an idea was made to do a sort of redo to the Marvel Universe, but in the form of a new imprint, Ultimate Comics. And the first series of that new imprint was the iconic Ultimate Spider-Man. Brian Michael Bendis brought a whole new spin to Spider-Man, a story that exploded in popularity. It essentially fueled the Ultimate Universe as a whole, keeping it going for 15 years worth of various spin-offs like Ultimate X-Men, The Ultimates, Ultimate Iron Man, and so on. But the most important spin-off and the main focus here would be Ultimate Fantastic Four. Like Spider-Man, it mixed up the origins and stories of the Fantastic Four, which would even lead to this version of Reed Richards being one of the most powerful villains the Marvel Universe had ever seen. But long before that, in 2005, Ultimate Fantastic Four writer and artist Mark Millar and Greg Land would introduce the world to one of its most out there concepts. In a 3-part story arc called Crossover, Ultimate Reed would receive a message from an older version of himself from an alternate universe. Originally, this was teased as a possible crossover between the Ultimate Universe and the main 616 universe. However, when Ultimate Reed would cross over to this other universe, instead of finding the iconic comic universe we all knew and loved, he found a universe ravaged by zombies. A mysterious virus brought to this universe by an infected sentry quickly spread and infected the entire world. It's never explicitly stated that the virus only infects metahumans, but we only really see metas as zombies in this universe. But we do see later on that other heroes with no actual powers or enhancements can also be turned into zombies. So it's clear that the only reason that we never see any normal people as zombies is because the bigger, stronger, and more powered zombies are just eating every part of the victim. Ultimate Reed is able to escape from the zombie versions of his alternate family, but he's soon captured by an entire horde of zombie heroes. Luckily, he's saved by Magneto of all people. Turns out, he's the leader and last bastion of the human race, which is kind of ironic. After a bit more zombie tension, the rest of the Ultimate Fantastic Four arrive at the universe to rescue Reed, and we even get a little face-off between Ultimate Thing and a zombie Hulk. But soon Reed and the rest of the team, and the last of this zombie's universe's humans, escape through the same portal that he used to arrive there and goes back to the Ultimate Universe, with Magneto staying behind to let them escape. Although considering all the stuff that would happen in the Ultimate Universe afterwards and the fact that it was wiped out completely not too long after, it was kind of a out of the frying pan into the fire for these people. The story would be so popular that not only would the zombie Fantastic Four return in another story in the Ultimate Fantastic Four comic, but the zombie universe itself would get its own miniseries soon after. Written by Robert Kirkman, who at the time was already the king of zombie fiction thanks to his smash hit The Walking Dead, with an absolutely legendary upgrade in the art from Sean Phillips. The story picks up right after the Ultimate Fantastic Four story, with Magneto trapped with the other zombie heroes. Although he's able to fight them off a little bit and make them work for it, he is eventually caught and devoured by who would be seen as the main zombies of the series: Spider-Man, Luke Cage, Giant Man, Hulk, Wolverine, and Captain America. Although in this universe he would be called Colonel America. Zombie Iron Man would also show up later. After the group eats, we start to learn a few rules about this zombie virus. Like many zombies, you need to actually destroy the brain in order to actually kill them, which is why we see Hawkeye get decapitated, but his head shows up later, unalive and well. Headpool also follows these rules, and you may have seen him in a few things. We also learn that the zombies suffer from a hunger for flesh of all kinds, but can be temporarily sated once they eat. They also talk and have all the same memories that they had before. They just seem to be driven by this hunger, even though it's clear they don't actually digest any of the flesh that they eat. Spider-Man actually breaks down and wails, hating himself for all the horrors that he's committed, and asking someone to kill him. It was revealed in a prequel one-shot, Dead Days, that in the early days of the infection, when he was first turned, he killed and ate both Mary Jane and Aunt May. The rest of the zombies dismiss his qualms with it, seemingly fine with the whole eating people thing, although this could be that they had just gone crazy with their own trauma. The main crux of the story revolves around Silver Surfer soon arriving on the planet to herald the coming of Galactus, before quickly being taken down and eaten by the zombies. They then conduct a planned defense to eat Galactus himself, which, after a hard-fought battle, they are successful. There's also a sub-story of Giant Man, aka Hank Pym, revealed to be keeping a still-alive Black Panther as a prisoner and taking bits off of him in order to keep himself sane. He's quickly discovered by Janet, and Hank bites her head off to keep her quiet, which, much like Hawkeye, would not be the end of her. Hank would also have an incredibly creepy line in the Ultimate Fantastic Four story, "I want to eat the girls." You have to remember, Hank Pym back then was still seen as one big old bastard. His rep really changed after the MCU, when he was more portrayed as a sweet old man, and the creation of Ultron was put on Tony. After devouring every inch of Galactus' flesh, the main zombies find themselves imbued with the power cosmic, essentially becoming Galactus themselves. They decide to use these newfound powers to leave Earth and find new sources of food in the stars. The comic ends with survivors hiding out on Asteroid M, coming back to an empty Earth to try to start over and survive as best they can, as the zombies close in on a new planet, not to eat the planet itself, which would already be a pretty horrifying fate, but making it worse by devouring every man, woman, and child alive. We'd also see a bit more of this in the Black Panther solo series, where Black Panther, his wife at the time, Storm, Johnny Storm, and the Thing would encounter the Skrull homeworld of the zombie universe, just as the cosmically powered zombies invade. Before we see the zombies again, we would also get an incredible crossover event, Marvel Zombies vs. Army of Darkness. A crossover actually in perfect continuity with both the Army of Darkness comics published by Dynamite and Marvel Zombies. This would see Ash, after dying at the end of his own series, ending up in heaven, where the zombified Sentry is also there. The two get kicked out and land at the zombie universe just at the start of the plague. So we get to see a little bit more than even the Dead Days prequel showed us. Ash even tries to warn the Avengers before all this happens, since he knows the army of the dead will rise and consume this world, which he initially attributes to the actions of his old enemy, the Necronomicon, who is self-aware and even talks in the comics. We also see Scarlet Witch as a sort of player in this series, which, in case you forgot, yes, this is a video about the Disney Plus series. Sorry, I know we got sidetracked, but I love this series so much, and I love talking about it, and this is all in service of reviewing the miniseries. The next Marvel Zombie story would open with the zombie team successfully eating every living thing in the universe. And in record time, too, only taking 40 years to go from planet to planet, eating any and all living things, even picking up some new zombies along the way, such as Thanos, Phoenix, Gladiator, and Firelord. After this, they remembered the dimensional portal that started all of this, and decided to go back to Earth, using it to travel to other universes to devour them too. Back on Earth, the previously established survivors are thriving as best they can, with no zombies about. Well, not entirely so. Janet, aka Wasp, is still around, such as he is, but now has a new robot body. And this reveals something interesting about the zombie virus. Apparently, after a while of not eating flesh, the hunger just sort of goes away. That's right, after all these years, Janet has no desire to eat flesh again, and is just a normal, immortal head on a robot body. There is some drama between two warring factions, which results in Black Panther, still alive and the leader of New Wakanda, being attacked and mortally wounded. Wasp, however, saves him by making him a zombie too, taking the two out of commission as they deal with their new desire for flesh. The cosmic zombies finally make it back to Earth, but after all that travel, Spider-Man and Luke Cage are starting to experience the same fade of the hunger that Wasp did. They are thinking rationally and greatly regret what they've done. However, Giant Man, ever the creep, wants to start a breeding program to create a new source of food for them. The two sides clash, but eventually, after a lot of other to-do, all the zombies end up coming together, except for Hulk, who needs to be put down. I don't want to summarize the whole series, because I think it's a series that everyone should read, at least the first two series, Dead Days and the Army of Darkness crossover. Marvel Zombies Return is also pretty good. The rest, however, are mostly just lame cash grabs who follow mostly a new team of Midnight Suns as they deal with various zombie outbreaks in other locations. They actually had real-life zombies invade the 616 universe, and all they could spare was nobodies like Machine Man and the Conquistador, because no one cares if they die. There's also a new Marvel Zombies Red Band series that is ongoing now as of the writing of this script, which I'm really liking so far. It's basically a re-envision of the early days of the Marvel Universe, but what if the Fantastic Four had come back to Earth with both powers and a hunger for human flesh? It's pretty good so far, I must say. But we've gotten off track. This was supposed to be about the Marvel Zombies miniseries on Disney+. But of course, to give my full thoughts on that, I need to talk a little bit about my thoughts on this version overall. And to do that, we need to take a look at where it all started. In 2021, Marvel released a new show on Disney Plus called What If, based on the comic series of the same name. The series portrayed several what-if scenarios set in the MCU at the time. The first season alone shows things like what if Captain Carter was the first Avenger, what if T'Challa were the Star-Lord, and what if Thor were an only child. While the series did have some interesting what-ifs, the problem was that it overall lost the plot very early from showing what-if scenarios and forcing all of them to fit together into an overall narrative, which muddied the waters a lot. One episode, which was somewhat saved from this, was the focus of this video, What If Zombies. Set around the opening of Infinity War, What If Zombies takes a drastic turn from the comic source. The first glaring difference is the zombies themselves. While they do maintain the classic look of the comics, with them not commonly having lips, the zombies don't talk. As mentioned in the comics, even the most recent ones, the zombies always talk, with each other and their victims. This would give us some brutal insight on the different heroes as they struggle with this hunger, as well as the ability to banter, taunt, and even barter with potential victims. Kinda like the vampires in I Am Legend. The book, not the movie. The lack of voices of the zombies is extra confusing, considering the zombies clearly have a sense of self-awareness and knowledge of their former lives. I mean, Tony knows how to use his armor, Strange can use portals, Captain America blocks with a shield, and Wanda, well, at some point, she's just herself, but a zombie, which, funnily, is actually more in line with the comics. There also doesn't really seem to be an emphasis on the hunger, at least not in the same ways in the comics. We'll see various zombies eating, but be it because of rating restrictions or what have you, you may see zombies take maybe a few bites, but not much else. Eating flesh doesn't really seem to be a big priority for these zombies. Let's look at an example. When Happy Hogan is captured by zombie Hawkeye and lured like a literal fish on a line, he has all the time and opportunity in the world to not just bite him once to infect him, but to devour him entirely. The only other possible threat or food is Sharon Carter, who's pinned to a wall with an arrow saved for later. It seems like, unlike the comics where the virus compels zombies to eat flesh of all kinds, or they start to feel a pain and madness that overwhelms them, the virus seems to be just about spreading itself to as many hosts as possible, which would explain why there's so many normal zombies around. It's clear that the influence of this special is more about inspiration by actual zombie movies or stories, rather than the original Marvel Zombies comic itself. The only real connection is the fact that Black Panther was captured by Vision in order to feed to a zombie Scarlet Witch at some point. Some may say that the What If version is a little goofier, due to it being in the MCU and its trademark MCU humor, but I personally think it works with this setting. The original comic would always have some moments of dark comedy with zombies reacting to their own limbs being removed, heads chopped off, and the absurdity of what they're going through. For example, this scene where Hope Van Dyne embiggens inside a zombie Sharon Carter, exploding her in the process and covering Hope in guts, is something I could see happening in the comics. However, this can also work against it, like the confrontation between a zombie Captain America and Bucky Barnes. Bucky seems to have no issue fighting and killing the zombie of his oldest friend, which I'm not saying he should be hesitant to kill him or anything. He is a soldier after all, and he's not against killing, but he should at least show some sort of emotion over it. Just imagine how the scene would have gone if the zombie could talk, taunting Bucky and even Sharon with their past and prior relationship. There's also the Spider-Man problem. Obviously, he is known for cracking wise and being positive in situations, but we're introduced to him making a cheeky little Zombie Survival Guide, and it's past halfway through the special till he even acknowledges the people he's lost. And when he does, he mentions his already dead uncle and Tony Stark over Aunt May, MJ, or even Ned Leeds. All his family, friends, everyone he's ever known is not only dead, but more than likely eaten alive, and he shows more emotion over his own death than the death of his loved ones. We could have gotten just a scene of him breaking down of the horror of it all and not being able to keep up the facade anymore. That's one of the biggest issues with this What If Zombie special. It has the humor, sometimes even some dark humor, but it does not really have the pathos. It comes off as low stakes when no one seems to really care or is not really reacting to any of the real horror that's happening. This is something that actually would be fixed in the miniseries, I'm happy to say. And with that, we can finally talk about the miniseries. The new miniseries follows a new team of sort of young Avengers, with Riri Williams, Kamala Khan, and Kate Bishop, voiced by their live-action counterparts. This was actually a nice touch for both Marvel Zombies and the What If series, where they would get the MCU cast to reprise their roles, except in several glaring cases like Tom Holland not returning for any Spider-Man related voices. This also leads to another awkward situation we'll talk about later. The trio are living together and trying to survive the zombie apocalypse, although they never explain how they know each other or how they got together or anything. The series has a problem with setting things up. They find a device in a crashed Quinjet that might be able to save the world, so they set off on a road trip to a S.H.I.E.L.D. facility. They do have a quick encounter with a zombie Hawkeye, but the real zombie action starts on the road when they come across an area where zombie Captain Marvel and Icarus of the Eternals are fighting each other endlessly. Which sounds like a cool concept if it was in a Old Man Logan story, but why is a zombie version of Carol Danvers endlessly fighting a zombie? It's clear Icarus is not trying to protect anyone, really, because he never really tries to protect the girls in any way. In fact, barely into the episode, we lose two of the group, with Kate being disintegrated by Captain Marvel and Riri getting bitten by a random zombie. This draws back to my earlier point where the zombies don't act like any of their previous versions of the Marvel zombies. Clearly, this Carol is not driven by hunger, because why would she disintegrate all of the meat off of her victim's bones? I might as well bring this up as well, but the main baddie of the series is a returning zombie Scarlet Witch who's building an army of zombies. She also seems to be a little bit more self-aware than others, being able to talk and use her powers to bend reality and make herself look normal for a bit. But nothing about her plan screams zombies. She's not trying to find more humans to eat or escape to other realities for more food like any of the comics. She wants the power of the Infinity Stone so she can supposedly fix the world. It's actually not a bad plan if you think about it, but everyone is doing everything they can to stop her because, I mean, she's a zombie, so it makes sense not to trust her. But really, look at the world, guys. We might as well try something. How much worse can it get? Speaking of the Infinity Stones, the second episode follows up the cliffhanger from the What If special with Black Panther, Spider-Man, and Scott Lang traveling to Wakanda with the Vision's Mind Stone to supposedly fix the world. When they get there, however, they find that all of Wakanda are zombies, which they never explain how, and they also find a zombie Thanos, which they never explain either. It might be easier to explain if the episode actually played out like normal. Unfortunately, the fight with Thanos is all in voiceover from Spider-Man due to the passing of Chadwick Boseman, meaning that he could not reprise his role that for some reason Marvel refuses to recast due to a misguided sense of respect. I don't mean to go off on a rant here, but Marvel needs to move past this and just recast T'Challa for the MCU. I can sort of understand Wakanda Forever essentially being a tribute to Boseman's death, even though future generations will watch these movies back, wanting to see the continuing adventures of T'Challa, only to find his character died for some reason. But continuing to refuse to recast him is just doing a disservice to the character and his legacy. In Marvel Zombies, we have him sacrificing himself to stop a zombie Thanos, which is labeled as saving the world, but really it just makes things worse and creates an even bigger situation in the form of a Infinity Wave thing. Again, all of this doesn't really feel like a zombie story. Sure, there's some gore and some blood, and it is rated TVMA after all, and the zombie Namor fight, we do have some pretty gruesome deaths, but a lot of them are just really tame. Let's take this as an example of the recent Marvel Zombies Red Band series I mentioned. This new series has a confrontation between a zombie invisible woman and Thor. Sue cuts Thor's connection to Mjolnir, which in the older continuity means he reverts back to a normal, weak human form. After this, he's trapped in one of Sue's force fields and crushed until he's just a slurry of blood and gore. This is a comic series that was sold in stores and protected from innocent eyes with a thin plastic bag. But Marvel Zombies is a TV MA series, and frankly, the worst thing that happens to known heroes is getting turned into a skeleton by energy blasts. We never see anyone get eaten, no flesh torn off, no real gore, or if there is, it cuts away way too quickly. This is barely a zombie story. If anything, this is more of a story of Wanda turning evil and just mind controlling people. You could have all of this happening to just normal people and just being controlled by Wanda and her powers and things, and it would all be the same. Not to say that this series does not have some good zombie action and moments. After we get past the setup with the Thanos stuff, there's a really great scene that shows New York City in absolute panic as the outbreak starts. A really great scene with a lot of panic and violence and dodging and whatnot. And even some giant zombies caused by the outbreak of Pym particles, which makes sense since the virus started there. The series also has way more of a sense of stakes and dread. Sure, the first real kill of the movie is played off like a joke, but the reactions are real. Ivan Virali does a great job conveying that emotion, and it's the first real time we get real reactions out of characters when people die or are zombies. It's really refreshing, to be honest. So does David Harbour as Red Guardian. Dude is selling the pain of losing multiple members of his family to zombies, even if he can also sell the joy of getting to fight a zombie Captain America. There is even a moment near the end that is a genuinely tense all is lost moment. I'll give the series this: it does juggle the sense of dread of being in a zombie apocalypse with the hope that living in a zombie apocalypse superheroes can bring. And not to spoil too much, but Infinity Hulk is a really badass concept. It's a little out of place in a zombie story, but it's still pretty cool. Point is, I don't think this series is bad. It's just a little confused and does forget sometimes that zombies is one half of the show title. The ending does leave itself open for another season, one that seems to play off of the concept of WandaVision but with zombies. But the funny thing is, the show kills off so many people, there's not much left to use. I mean, the MCU does not have as many heroes and villains to work with as the comic universe, which is probably why there's so much padding with civilian zombies. I personally enjoyed it for what it was. Could use a little more, but it was fun enough watch for 4 half-hour episodes. But I want to know what you think. Did you like the show? Did you read the comics? How do you think that they compare? Leave a comment below and let me know. This is The One Nerd. Until next time, I hope you have a great rest of your day and a spectacular October and Halloween season.